Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Smart Buy podcast, brought to you by Home By Me. I'm Frank, your host today. I've got a couple of special guests, and I'd love to introduce them to you. Trevor Johnson from Blackwood Homes. Trevor, what's your story, man?
Yeah, Frank, thanks for having me today. You know, we started Blackwood Homes and Blackwood Builders Group about 12 years ago. So we built a lot of homes here in the Puget Sound region. I grew up here and love this place, and thanks for having me on the show today.
Yeah, love having you here. Thanks so much. We also have Sophia Goldberg today, one of our first-time home buyers that came through Home By Me. We're lucky to have her. And Sophia, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and your story.
Yeah, so we just bought our first home here in the Seattle area, the Fremont area. So just came on here to talk about my experience with that and with working with Home By Me to save that little extra bit of money. And yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. When I'm thinking about what's happening in and around the market, we're seeing fewer transactions take place. There's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines kind of waiting to see, what's going to happen. Are rates going to lower? Is the market going to settle down? But, from your perspective, what are you seeing as far as barriers to entry for, either first-time home buyers or home buyers in general, even with your product?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and there's been a lot of anxiety out there with the market and different things going on with AI and jobs and so forth, specifically in our Seattle Puget Sound market. But we're seeing that kind of across the country. Yeah. So we think there's the interest rates from the peak have come down almost 2 points, but we think there's some opportunities now because it's leaned toward in the Puget Sound market a buyer's market. So there's really a little bit more stability than there was in the run up in 2021 and 22 when there's multiple offers. So we really see a great opportunity in this market for buyers to come in, and having an opportunity like Home By Me is just another option that we've been able to give our buyers. They could still be represented by a broker, or they could still represent themselves. Yeah. And then that gives them even more buying power than their other folks might have.
Yeah. And when you talk about it being a buyer's market, describe that in your words. How do you feel about, what are the things that make it a buyer's market?
Well, for us, we've been building in Seattle for 13 to 15 years. And obviously for many years, there was not enough inventory. Interest rates were low. So, things would fly off the shelf pretty quick, 1 week to 3 months, or we'd sell out of sight or, thereabouts. But a lot of people bought homes in the low interest rates. And now there's the lock-in effect that we're seeing, which for the viewers and what we're talking about there is so many people are a sub 5% mortgage that unless they have a real urgent need to move, they're like, we're not going to move. And so the churn in the market from moving from place to place like it's normally been over the last 30, 35 years in the US has not happened. And so that's, made it tougher for just kind of the normal kind of gyration of the market.
Yeah. And it's a great segue to talk with Sophia about this, because Sophia it's her first time buying a home. She's just done it successfully. Congratulations. It's awesome. But when when we talk about a buyer's market, or at least from what Trevor just said, how do you feel about that? As a first time buyer, do you think it's a buyer's market? What were some of your barriers to entry as far as what you were thinking about as far as buying a home?
Yeah, so we wanted to wait until interest rates were at least somewhat down from 7% was what we were looking at originally, and that did end up happening. We were able to get it down to 5.6 for us, so that kind of made it more possible for us to really take things seriously. And the buyer's market, I do feel it. I do see things sitting for longer. I didn't feel that sense of oh my gosh, we need to hurry through this process, which was nice in some ways. As now a homeowner, I do, as soon as you own your home, you start worrying about is value going to increase now? We do want that in the future. So it's kind of a funny thing where when you turn from a home buyer to a homeowner, I've noticed that mind shift has already shifted for us. But yes, we were really excited to get in when the interest rates were down, and also we are expecting them to go down further. So we're expecting to refinance. So we're just kind of had all of that in our mind when we were looking.
So a thought for you is obviously you've got friends and colleagues, in similar situations. What do you tell them? Should you buy right now?
Yeah. I think some of my friends are, playing the long game with like their family home. Like there's a lot of that. And like I think that there's a lot of generational like wanting to pass that home on to the next. So I think millennials of my generation, young millennials, are struggling in the savings department. I think that that's kind of like a widely known thing. But it does seem like everyone's kind of gotten their things together. We're all in our early 30s. Like we've managed to save enough to do a little bit of a nest egg. And so I think more and more of my friends are considering, as they're starting to start like their families, just needing more space and really wanting to own their home. So yeah, I mean, I think we were one of the first in our friend group to do it, but we are having those conversations more and more with our friends.
What about you, Trevor? I mean, if you've obviously been buying and selling real estate in various forms for 20 or 30 years now. Is it a good time to buy right now?
Based on my experience in the Seattle market, I think it's really a good time to buy. And I'm obviously selling, so some people might think watching this that I'm biased, which I probably am, but just looking at all the data metrics, again, from the previous 10 years from coming out of the market crash, there was just a lot of competition. I mean, we had handwritten letters and we had 6 offers on a home, and it was just driving prices up. Even though interest rates were low, they were asking like, hey, please choose me. So buyers are now more in the driver's seat to say, hey, I don't have to offer escalators over asking. Sure, they pay a little more interest, but Sophia said it so well that, you can refi in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. So if you structure it right, this is really the time to not wait for the herd mentality with everyone to come back in, and then 1 or 2 or 3 years, then multiple offers and you're like, I can't buy a home again. So this feels like a great opportunity. And I'm even thinking of buying my next place personally. So it's kind of like you gotta buy it at the right time. So this feels like an interesting time before it starts to, come back up. And we think if it hits the 5.99 as a conforming rate, or below in the 5s, I think there's a lot of people waiting on the sidelines that are really ready to go. Yeah. Millennials and different generations, maybe Gen X's, and then the Alpha, right, is starting to come up as well, that are waiting, like looking for the deals. We're seeing a lot more, people looking at a lot of deals and just waiting, but when they're ready to go, they make their offer and they're on board.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately too. Is just in the real estate that I've bought, it's really easy to kind of get this sort of tunnel vision. Like right now, this is a huge stretch and I'm not sure what to do. I don't want to be cash poor and house rich, I still want to have my lifestyle. But at the end of the day, like it's such a long game, you don't sort of buy real estate to get rich. You buy it to protect your wealth. That's how I've thought about it. And I think if you kind of make that pivot in your mind, like, okay, this is actually going to be a little painful, but this is where I'm headed, and in playing that long game certainly will benefit you, One thing you said about getting a deal, like how do you think, and I'd love to hear both of your opinion on this, is like, how do you find the best deal? What is the best deal? Like, is it a negotiating tactic with the seller or the builder? Is it a lending side of things? Is it a time of close? Like, how would you give, from your experience, Trevor, how would you give somebody advice of saying, hey, I want to find the best deal. What do I do?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing out there is people they're just waiting because they are looking for that best deal. Mm-hmm. So I think we're seeing that from almost every buyer that I've seen. There's not like they look at the first house and they offer. People are looking for months and months and months. And again, being on like a Home by Me platform, we even have U-Tours set up on our homes so you can go tour them on your own. It removes a lot of the friction and then gives you opportunities to say, hey, I'm going to make an offer through Home by Me, and the seller, us in this case, doesn't have to pay a commission to another broker. We build that relationship a lot sooner. We love building the relationships with our buyers, which we have done over the years. Even have a super fan dinner with our buyers once a year for our super fans. And so it's, that's really a good opportunity for buyers that are out there. Yeah. But I'd say looking at those kind of platforms where you could save some money, because then they can offer a little bit less because they can go through Home by Me and we don't have to pay a commission. So negotiating with us, like that's one of the best ways to get a good deal at Blackwood Homes.
It's shameless plug, but one thing that is worth noting that I'm seeing, Trevor, that you guys are doing that a lot of builders I don't think are, is you're leveraging this sort of modern take on real estate transactions to put more money in the buyer's pocket. So when you're talking about a rate buy down and it's a 7-year ARM, that's an adjustable rate mortgage, but it's an ARM that starts at 199 for the first year. I mean, that's free money to me. You know, anything at that rate for a year, and then it goes to 299, 299, then 399, and then caps at 499 for 7 years. I mean, 7 years to own a home these days seems like an eternity. And that is like, to me, one of the best deals out there. It's like, how do I secure and lock in that rate? Because I think you mentioned it earlier, it's like people don't want to sell because the biggest asset isn't necessarily the home, it's the financial instrument, right? It's the rate that they have on their mortgage, which is pretty important, not to kind of poo-poo it. Like, it's a big deal. So it's exciting to see what you guys are doing with that. Sophia, from your perspective, like, how did you find the best deal? Like, what were you thinking about when you were trying to like knock this out?
Yeah, I mean, we were waiting for kind of the perfect situation for us. It was a condo. We knew we wanted a condo, but you know, there's 2 of us. We wanted 2 parking spots, which is weirdly rare in Seattle. And there was just like a lot of things that we wanted to line up, like the neighborhood. We're both city people. We wanted to be, you know, central Seattle. So when something came along, it was less about the deal and, you know, whether it just basically fit in our budget. It was exactly where we needed it to be. And it was everything that we needed, which felt pretty rare. So we kind of just pounced on it. And, you know, we were able to save a lot of money by using Home by Me because we, you know, skipped that 3% that probably would have figured into it. So I think, yeah, it was less to me thinking about a deal and more about just like, this fits exactly what I've been looking for in the price range that I've been
Talk to me about the timeline from your like sort of considering to actually like jumping in and making an offer. Like, what did that look like for you? Like, how quickly did that happen?
Yeah, we'd been thinking about it for like 2 or 3 months. So it wasn't really that long before we found something that fit perfectly, which is great. But yeah, so, I mean, we were looking, kind of trying to figure out like how cash poor and house wealthy do we want to be? House rich do we want to be? Because, you know, we have a lifestyle that we would like to uphold to an extent. And, you know, we are making some sacrifices, but we were able to sort of find a situation that we're still able to live our lives for the most part, while taking this big step.
It's kind of wild, isn't it? How quickly the money goes. You're just like,
yeah,
wow, I guess we're not going out for dinner tonight.
Yep. Yeah.
know?
It's so exciting to be able to plan for a future. Like, you know, as renters, we never got to really make any changes to our home, and now we get to have an opinion and we get to plan for things. And even if we can't renovate our kitchen this month, we can do it in a year. And like, you know, those are things that we're saving for and thinking about, which is really cool.
One question I have for you is, when you're thinking about this purchase, like, how long do you think that you will stay in this first purchase? Like,
yeah,
what's that consideration for you?
Yeah, it's not our forever home. It's a 2-bedroom condo, so not really big enough for us to really build our family. So I think we plan for about 3 to 5 years. And yeah, I didn't really, it was in the price range where I was pretty confident that in 3 to 5 years, you know, the value will increase, and especially like we're putting money into it to improve it. So, you know, that was kind of, it felt like a good move for us to have a starter home and like have like a transitional home, because we knew we weren't going to be able to afford like a 4-bedroom house in a neighborhood that we wanted to be in right now. But this was a really good stepping stone for us.
Trevor, I think this is a really good like time. I'd love to hear more from you about, when I think about, you know, the lifespan of how, you know, kids will start off living in parents' basement, get their first apartment, you know, start to, you know, maybe they buy their first condo, and then they kind of moving up the system as far as, you know, building equity in an investment and then taking that equity and trading up, right? Yeah. When you think about Blackwood Homes and the ecosystem that you guys build, I know you have a lot of different price points and you build a lot of different product types. Talk to me a little bit about like how you help the buyers in that journey to go from like starter home, whether it's a condo or a townhome, to, maybe their first home to have a family in, so on and so forth. Did I ask that question? Does that make sense?
Yeah, a great question. We've built roughly 500 homes in the last 12 years. So to your question, we've built a lot of different product type, many townhomes, so hundreds of townhomes, some standalone single families that are either short platted or unit lot subdivided. But what we're building now is, the house ADU, DADU type of product.
Oh, yeah.
And again, the ADU and DADU, we have some coming on the market in Columbia City in January, and we pro forma'd those in the 500s. Brand new home with parking on site, high 500s.
Which is crazy because the median price in the city is
900 or something, yeah.
So you're half the median,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Right,
Okay.
and close to Columbia City,
Yep.
so in vibrant area, park right across the street. But then we've also built homes on Queen Anne and Magnolia and other areas that they're maybe closer to $2 million, right? So again, building this ecosystem of what we're doing, like you might start in a starter home, like Sophia was saying, in the condo that she's in, and then in a couple years, 2, 3, 5, whatever works for each family or each person, you might be able to buy that next home. So we'd love that opportunity to be that, the builder that people go, we had a great experience. Hey, we'd look at another Blackwood home if it's in the right area, the right size, the right timing for their situation or their family or whatever they have going on
Yeah.
in their lives at that moment.
I think there's a lot of data too that suggests out there that this type of moving up also starts to create room in the market for other people to get into it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something also that gets missed a lot, is sort of, you look at housing as, hey, we have this big housing problem and demand is spiking. It's at an all-time high, and there's always like more housing. But being able to think of it this way is to say, you've got to start somewhere, And I mean, a lot of folks are brand loyal. I'm brand loyal. I mean, I buy the same shoes. I buy the same things. Like, I love the fact that somebody can go to Blackwood and say, look, I want to start here and I want to keep going, and stick close to this brand. I think that's awesome. It's a great way to kind of keep customers in the ecosystem and continue to build like the equity for them, which, I'm sure they're giving you a high five at these dinners saying, thanks for building a great home that ultimately netted the equity that I could buy my next home for. So
Yeah,
that's
especially
awesome.
the ones 10, 12 years ago.
See,
Back when we were selling homes in the 300,000 and 400,000s in the Seattle area.
Oh, it's wild.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, it is. It is incredible.
Or when I started in '09 buying, bank-owned homes in the 200s in Lower Queen Anne.
Oh man, that's right.
It just doesn't even, it's hard to even fathom how much equity. And again, to Sophia's point, right, she's building equity. And I think that's really still the American dream for a lot of people. Maybe not everybody, but that's something that I'm really passionate about, is like being able to realize that American dream that my parents did, right, many people's grandparents. And then, I have friends that have kids that are like, they're moving away because they can't afford a home here.
Yeah.
And they're going to go somewhere else. And that just pains me every time I hear that.
Yeah.
And I have a 13-year-old boy, 11-year-old boy, and a 3.5-year-old little girl. And I want them, if they want to live out in the Northwest, I want them to be able to live out here and not be stymied by, I can't afford a home, to then realize some equity in that American dream. That's part of Americana to me.
Well, that kind of brings me to a thought I've just had about kind of myths in the marketplace, where I feel like there's this need to like shortchange the process and jump all the way to the $2 million home, right? Versus like take that escalator that's going to help you get there.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to talk more about that with you too, Sophia. Like, was that ever a thought in your mind? Like, hey, I'm just going to go for the gusto on this. I'm going to go big, versus like, okay, actually, there is a process. There is a success like path.
Yeah.
And how did you come to that? Like, how did you figure that out? Like,
You just had to look and kind of crunch the numbers a little bit and be like, I wouldn't really be able to do anything for several years if I was going to go for like a bigger push, because your mortgage would be much higher. And I think that we didn't want to give up that part of our lives so much. So like making a sort of middle jump in between, I think just made more sense for where we're at in life. Like, we still are young, we still want to travel, we still want to do things. So like, we weren't ready to just, like set in and live in our house and do nothing else for years and just work to pay off the mortgage. So this was kind of like the comfortable middle step for us. And then, yeah, eventually I think we hope that it will provide equity so that we can make that next jump a little bit easier. Yeah.
You think, just, and I'd love to hear from both of you on this one, is that, I mean, this may be more philosophical about like who we are as humans today in a world where we can get everything like that. You think that plays a role too, where people kind of see like, hey, this is where I want to be, and so that's where I'm going to go, versus understanding like, hey, there's actually a longer ramp to get there? What do you think about that? Like, do you encounter that at all, where someone says, hey, I should probably pump the brakes a little bit and know that, you know, I'm not going to be able to be here yet, but this is the road it's going to take to get there? Do you guys ever have those educational conversations with folks, or?
Not too much until after we, have the buyers that we, meet in warranty, and, because we do punch list at 90 days and 1 year. So that's really where we start to build that relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And great people on my team like Tanner Adams and our warranty guy, Sean, right? They really build that relationship over time.
Yeah.
And so that's when we start to hear about those things. But usually, historically, they would work with a broker, and they now are giving them the power to, with Home by Me, to buy some of their opportunity back, as far as their opportunity to build some long-term wealth. But it's mostly post, the closings. But, talking to the younger generations, it's a lot like Sophia said. It's like, if you think about it strategically and long-term, right, you can just buy something that's more affordable now and work your way up and just, kind of buy some time. But when you're renting, you're not building any equity.
Yeah.
And you get no write-offs, no tax depreciation, not any of the things. You don't get any of those things if you're just renting.
The benefits of a tax shelter. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think like part of the positive thing about having slightly higher mortgage rates is people aren't making those decisions rashly. Like, when you have a 5 or 6 or 7% mortgage rate, you're not going to buy a $2 million home, because you're going to be paying a lot more month to month than you would if it was like a 1%. Like, so I think that's kind of what, isn't that part of what caused the housing crash? I could be wrong about that, but people were buying homes that were a little bit too big for their britches.
In 2007, 8, and 9.
Yeah, and I think
they called them liar loans.
Yeah, so that was
stated income, stated net worth.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. I was here in the city, and I just remember I was not far from the WAMU Tower, and WAMU was one of those type of liar loan providers, and I just remember people walking out of the building with all their stuff from their desks because WAMU went under. But yeah, it was a time when underwriting really didn't take place. You didn't have to prove your income. There was a lot of things happening, which honestly we're starting to see that come around again with some different parameters. Not necessarily like the scales tipped, but we're seeing types of loan products, debt service coverage ratio, where as long as the mortgage is covered by an appraised rent, they really won't look at you financially, because the asset will cover itself, which is kind of interesting. Those types of loans exist out there now, where we're starting to see these creative products come out for lenders, because they're trying to move product and put money back in service.
One thing I wanted to go back to that Sophia was mentioning about interest rates. I know my parents have been in the same home 41 years that they bought in December of 1984. But they assumed over 8% mortgage in December of 84, because that was a great rate. Wow. Because at that point, some interest rates were probably between 10 and 12 for a mortgage.
Right.
So I think the wisdom that Sophia was talking about is like, hey, it's come down, it's settled, because the long-term interest rate over the last 40, 50 years is like 6.5%. And over the last even 25 years, it's like 5%. Yeah. Right? So that blip that we saw that was the lowest interest rates, mortgage rates in U.S. history, probably world history, right, isn't sustainable. And so people just hoping or waiting, they might be waiting till they're, till they're retired to buy something if they're waiting for those rates to come back. Right. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you said about, just thinking about it strategically, long term, and just historically for folks, to look at that data and like, hey, this is historically, we're still at pretty good rates right now. Yeah. This isn't too crazy.
Yeah, someone told me once that like there's no right time to buy a home. Like the right time to buy a home is when it's right for you. Yeah. So I think that we kind of kept that in mind, because if rates went down much more, the competition would be so much more fierce and it would be so much more stressful. So this was the right time for us.
I think that's a wrap for today, and just want to do a special thanks to both Trevor and Sophia for coming in and having some candid conversation about the market. We'll see you folks next time.